Radar Update. My name is Daniel Vallis and welcome to our channel. I just wanted to give you a quick update with just a few more thoughts and just a quick tweak to the timeline. On our last video I mentioned that the midnight mark would be on December 1st. That was incorrect. It's actually on November 30th. And you can see on torcalendar.com the current month, the month 9, only has 29 days, not 30. And so the next new moon sighting is expected to be on November 30th, which will start the 10th month. And the event study calendar does show it correctly, but somehow it just got mistranslated when making the slides. So again, midnight mark is on November 30th. And really the only thing that changes is it just moves the midnight mark and the traditional day when Esther goes to the king's house. That's typically seen as the first day of the 10th month. And so that's really the only thing that changes. But we can definitely see that time is running out. We have a lot of biblical shadow patterns that we've been looking at and coming together right now with a lot of good reminders and very sobering reminders too of the time we're at. We've been keeping our eye on the scepter and the shepherd's crook and reminding us that time is running out. But everything we've seen coming together so far has been very amazing, how the Lord has given us insight and wisdom to see it all coming together, because He does want us to live in light of His return. He wants us to draw nigh to Him at this time. He wants us to purify our hearts and life and to live in light of His return. And so we should not be surprised in the sense that He is giving wisdom. It is amazing to see the beautiful tapestry of redemption and the incredible depth to it. And it will be amazing in eternity to see all the things that we missed and to see the even greater depth that there is there. We know there's even so much more. And what we see so far and what He has drawn our attention to has been so amazing. We have so many reasons to watch for this time. We do not know the day or hour, but we know our attention has been brought here, and especially how the Lord has been giving a lot more wisdom lately and making a lot of things click together that we've seen and observed over the past few weeks and months. So we have so many reasons to watch right now. We don't know the day or hour again, but we have so many reasons to be looking in this time and to make sure we are ready, and most especially to be looking up and expecting our beloved. And there is so much that could be said, but we definitely have a lot of very clear things that we can study too as well, and that's what we try to pass on right away and get out to you as the clearest things possible. But when we look at just the Feast of Dedication with all the pictures, particularly how it ties in with the pictures that Christ warned His disciples about, of how we are to be the wise virgins and shining bright and checking our lamps for oil, what is burning in our life, what is shining in our life, what we treasure in our life. Are we spending our life and energy and passions on buying things that last for eternity, so to speak? Or are we buying oil that will not burn for eternity? We need to be seeing where are we pouring our life into right now. Giving God all of our heart, our mind, our soul, our strength, directing it to shine bright for Christ at this time. They checked the oil when they were having their dedication service, and they realized on the first day that they only had enough oil to last that first day. But it actually lasted an additional 7 days for a total of 8 days. So we have multiple pictures here. The last day that first fruits can be brought to the temple, as also happens to be the olive first fruits. This is a time that we are reminded to check the oil in the lamps to make sure we have enough. We're reminded of the parable of the wise and foolish virgins. The wise virgins made sure they had extra oil to burn. The foolish did not concern themselves about it. They were not concerned about shining bright. That wasn't the top thing on their mind. And so we have a powerful reminder here at the start of Hanukkah that we need to be checking our lamp. We need to be checking our oil. Are we shining for Christ? Are we pouring our life into Christ and to serve Him first and highest above all else? That is the great commandment, and that is what we should be pouring our life into. So we use this time to rise up, to go out to meet the bridegroom, and to trim our lamps at this time, checking our lamps, make sure the wicks are burning brightly, and making sure that we have oil in them. And then that little gap of time between when the wise and foolish virgins heard the midnight cry, "Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him," that little window of time is when the foolish virgins realized, oh, we don't have enough oil. And what did the wise virgins tell them? Go and buy oil. We are in a little warning window right now. We have heard the warnings. We have heard the trumpet call at midnight. We've heard the lion roar with all the prophecies and everything else. We have so much directing our attention to this time, particularly that it's the midnight hour too. And when we realize that we're not shining like we should, we need to stop everything else that we're doing, and we need to spend our time, our energy, our strength, our focus on making sure we are shining bright at this time. That's how we buy more oil. We invest our time and our energy to make sure we are shining bright. And now is the time when we examine our life and take inventory. How much am I spending on oil to shine bright for Christ? Is it important to me? Am I living wisely, or am I living foolishly? Now is the time when we must prioritize checking our oil. There are so many patterns coming together right now that should sober us up and have us vigilant to what matters. We've been looking at John chapter 10, an incredible picture where Christ is talking to the people about how he is the good shepherd. And he spends all this time talking about the pictures of shepherd and the sheep and good shepherd and bad shepherds. This is an incredible picture because when we look at it, we see some incredible timing and other shadows woven into it. We've looked at how he says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. And he emphasizes it twice of saying, I am the good shepherd. I am the good shepherd. And he emphasizes the relationship he has with his sheep. He gives his life for his sheep. Jesus Christ is God made flesh. How God provided himself a lamb. How God provided the way of redemption for his creation. He is the good shepherd who gave his life for the sheep. And we've seen so many incredible pictures of the great shepherd and also the scepter and the shepherd's crook and the dual pictures of the king and the shepherd king, and how Shiloh is both. He's the King of Kings, but he's also the good shepherd. And one day, Shiloh, the King of Kings, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, is going to gather his people. And in verse 16, it has caught our attention how he emphasizes and talks about the Gentile fold, the other fold. And we've looked at other prophecy, and we talked about it in the Shiloh booklet about how Christ came to be a light to the Gentiles. That was the whole reason he came the first time. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold, he's talking to the Jews, them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. So here in this context, he's talking about the sheep and the shepherd, and he emphasizes that there are two folds. He does have another fold, and he's talking about the Gentiles, the collection of all the tribes, all the nations, every tongue. And we see that picture also in Revelation chapter 5, before the throne, before the Lion of the tribe of Judah, when he has gathered his people there in that picture. And in the middle of him talking to them about all these pictures and the folds and the flocks and the shepherds, it pauses and mentions, and it was at Jerusalem, the feast of dedication, and it was winter, and Jesus walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. And then it goes on talking some more. But it gives us important clues here. It pauses and lets us know some important things. Historical notes that otherwise would not have been important, when they are mentioned in this context, it's because he wants us to tie these two together to see why is this being mentioned in this context. So first off, it mentions that it's at Jerusalem and it's at the Feast of Dedication, which is all about the Maccabean revolt and the dedication of the temple, the purifying and the cleansing of the temple too as well. So we have that picture of the temple, the focus on the temple. The whole feast is about the dedication of the temple. And the setting is there too as well. And it also mentions time. It was winter. It was in the latter part of the year. It was cold. And so already we're seeing where this is taking place, what event is taking place, what time of the year it was. We're having multiple things. He's being super specific so we know exactly when this context, when this picture is being painted. It was at Jerusalem. It was during the Feast of Dedication. And it was winter. And of course we understand the Feast of Dedication more as Hanukkah today, is what we understand it as. The emphasis on the lamps and burning bright and the oil. All these pictures are being brought up here and making sure that we understand very specifically, take note of these facts here. But then verse 23 says, and Jesus walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. Why would that be important? He's walked in the temple many times. On a surface level, this can seem as no big deal, but when we stop and realize, why is that being emphasized here? What is so important about Solomon's porch and Jesus walking in the temple? Well, obviously it is important that Jesus is there at the temple and at the Feast of Dedication. That means he recognized it and observed it, and it was a historical event for the Jewish people, well established by his time. But it mentions specifically where he's walking in the temple too. So it's super specific. It's at Jerusalem, he's at the temple, what's going on, what time of year it is, where he is in the temple. It's being super specific. It's given details that we are supposed to be paying attention to and writing down on paper and taking a note and studying. Why is all this being stated in this context? The shepherd, the sheep. What is so important about all these? Well, where is he walking? He's walking in the temple in Solomon's porch. Where is Solomon's porch? Well, when we look at a model of the temple, Solomon's porch is the covered portico off to the left there. Is a beautiful area, a lot of colonnades. People gather there. It's perfect for teaching. But you'll notice how far it is away from the actual temple building itself and from the court of women, which is the inner court right before it. Solomon's porch is located in the court of the Gentiles. The court of the Gentiles is a massive court right in that big area there. Solomon's porch is in the court of the Gentiles. He's emphasizing and telling you in this passage that he's talking about being the good shepherd, and he's going to be bringing and gathering another fold. He's talking about that in context of the Feast of Dedication, lights and burning at the temple in the court of the Gentiles. He's telling you plainly, I'm talking about all this stuff in the court of the Gentiles. I'm not in the other parts of the temple. No, I'm in the court of the Gentiles talking about the Gentiles. He's bringing multiple emphasis to the pictures that he's talking about here, and where it's recorded that he's talking about it is very important. And especially when we understand that it was well understood from prophecy that he was coming to be a light to the Gentiles first. He's going to be gathering them first. And so he's making a connection that he is going to bring that other fold. And he's talking about that bringing of the other fold at the court of the Gentiles, so you really understand what group and gathering of people he's talking about. You see, the Gentiles, when they went through the temple, they could only gather outside in that court of the Gentiles, that really big court. They couldn't go into the inner area there. And so he's talking in an area where they could gather. When they gathered at Jerusalem, that was as far as they could go. And he's talking about gathering of the other fold right at where the Gentiles would gather, at the temple in Jerusalem. And we have the expectation of one day being called to the New Jerusalem, to be gathered by Shiloh. Very interesting connection that he's emphasizing to this time of shining bright and checking the oil and the lamps. And then you'll notice down in verse 28 and 29, he says, And I give unto them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand. My Father which gave them me is greater than all, and no man is able to pluck them out of my Father's hand. Notice that he emphasizes this twice, but he changes it. The first time he says, they will not be plucked out of my hand. The second time he says, they will not be plucked out of my Father's hand. And in verse 30, I and my Father are one. He's emphasizing that when you see Christ, you are seeing God. They are the same. Jesus Christ is God. And notice the word that he's using there, pluck. Very interesting word, because when we look that up in the Strong's, the Greek word there is harpazo, which is the exact picture used of the rapture, the snatching, the grabbing. And he uses the picture of nobody will be able to snatch them out of my hand. Nobody will be able to snatch them out of my Father's hand, which intimates that he has already snatched and grabbed them first. And of course, that is a picture of salvation too as well. But then it also alludes to, and it's the same picture that he uses when he's going to be snatching his bride too as well. So it's amazing to see all these pictures right in this context, right in the same conversation, talking about gathering the other fold that he's going to bring. And he's using wording of harpazo, and he's talking about it in the court of the Gentiles, about the Gentiles, at the Feast of Dedication, which is about lamps and oil and shining bright. And he's talking about the Good Shepherd and sheep, and so many pictures coming together. It's a beautiful picture and tapestry of redemption that Christ is painting for us at this time where we are. And we've been watching Jupiter and the scepter and the time of Shiloh with the main understanding that it is all about the gathering of Shiloh's people, the gathering of the Good Shepherd's people, the other fold, how he came to be a light to the Gentiles. And remember what started this scepter here that we saw. It was Jupiter shining at its brightest. He came to be a light to the Gentiles. What lights our lamp? What light shines through us? It's Jesus Christ. The world should see Jesus Christ shining in us. And this is why we need to check our lamp, to see what is seen in our life at this time. We see so many reminders coming together at this time of what we are supposed to model our life after, the pictures and shadows, and things we're supposed to look for and be attentive to, and how we are supposed to be shining bright in light of when we see our redemption drawing nigh. And it should catch our attention, the pictures of midnight and the lamps and the oil and the reminders to be wise, to be watching, to be ready. And it's all taking place in context right during this window of the Feast of Dedication when the temple was cleansed and purified. And it's during this time that he's talking about other sheep that he had that he must bring. And he said that as the Good Shepherd during the Feast of Dedication in the court of the Gentiles. All of these lining up at this time are not accidental. It's not coincidental. These pictures are painted for us deliberately. And he is bringing our attention to them and weaving our understanding to see it even clearer too. When we hear the trumpet call at midnight, when we hear God calling our attention to certain matters, we must be paying attention. We must be examining what we should be doing, how we can be living wisely, and how we can be shining bright. We see that time is short. Let us be wise. Let us take heed to the warnings and the pictures that he gives us so that we can be shining bright at this time. Now on our Google Drive, I have this timeline picture uploaded there, last updated on the 21st of November, and you can find the link in the description box. Definitely study what's coming together right in this narrow window of days right here. It is so amazing. And when we see all these things coming together, we are warned we should be watching and we should be making ourselves ready. So definitely give priority to this. Make sure you are buying oil at this time to help you shine bright at this time. And if you haven't, I highly suggest you watch our video, Exodus 2, The Redeemed Possession, where you learn more about the beautiful pictures of redemption that are coming together and how the bridegroom is going to one day snatch away his bride as he gathers them to himself. We have heard the trumpet call at midnight, so let us rise up, let us trim our lamps, let us check our oil, and let us shine bright for Christ as we go out to meet him halfway, serving Christ first and highest above all else. Maranatha.